Hello, everybody, and welcome to the archive. We don't do these very often, kind of a special occasions kind of show. So what I'm going to do today, so the archive, I like to focus on one fight in particular. Today I'm going to talk about the UFC 245 main event between Usman and Covington, their first fight. I'm going to talk about this for a few reasons because there's a few misconceptions about this fight, about the way that it played out. There's some interesting teaching points in this one as well, things that happened, clarifications of rules, etc., etc. The other thing that's worth noting as well is this was a very, very high profile and very chaotic fight, and there was a lot of games going into it, lots of stories being told, and characters coming out and playing certain games, and that, of course, for us as fans, it all feeds into the intrigue and the fun of the fight. It does make these environments rather chaotic, though, and this is why I think some people would hold certain opinions, because people get very, very invested in fighters. And if you're a big fan of Colby Covington, then I can certainly see reasons why stories would be created to make it seem like he was being hard done by, even though I don't think he is. But that is the narrative that he was playing. That's the game that he played, and that's immediately what started feeding into the the rematch. Very well played by Covington, and of course we knew this about him before, because he was on the chopping block before he got out to Brazil, before he cut that very offensive post-fight interview and got re-signed and made a load of money. He's playing the game. He's playing it very well. And he is kind of a reflection of what's happening in the wider world. We see these things going on all the time. People talking about stolen elections or Nazis in Ukraine or whatever. Like a spin is put on things to for us to get certain results. One other thing, in fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson mentioned this in an interview that I posted on my Twitter the other day. He said that the human brain has a flaw, and if we hear the same thing over and over again, at some point we start to believe it. And that is very true. We see that quite a lot, especially when people aren't interested in looking at into the actual facts for themselves. So the reason I'm doing this is just to kind of clear up some misconceptions, get some information out to you guys, and hopefully relay some of the interesting teaching points that I've learned, through studying this fight and talking to various officials around this fight. Okay. First misconception I just want to point out, because I have heard a concern raised at this about the referee walking over and shaking Kamaru Usman's hand. This is just a very quick, simple one. So here's Covington in his corner. There's the handshake that we're talking about there. Now, it was insinuated that this was the signifier of foul play, and the fact that the referee didn't go over to Covington's corner to do the same thing. What you'll actually notice after this handshake is that he does go back over and stand in the neutral corner. But what it's worth remembering is that Usman is the defending champion, so he came out second. So the point that Covington's already arrived in the octagon, the referee's already gone over and seen him. If you watch the full broadcast on Fight Pass, the full 4 hours or so, if you pull it up to just before Covington walks out, you'll see the whole thing. Because this is the clip just before, so this is before Usman's actually arrived in the octagon. This is Covington kind of walking back and forth in his corner. You can see the referee in the neutral corner there. Oh, too far. Bum, 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 bum. Back to a neutral corner. Here we go. So there's the neutral corner there. This is where the fighters come in and they do a little loop and they run around, etc. The referee stays in the neutral corner. And something else as well that, not all referees do this, but some do. And if they do, they generally wait until the fighters either had their moment in their corner to kind of do their shadow boxing and run back and forth, or like with Aldo, he kind of stands with his head down, or they'll wait until the cameras are away from them, because the focus is on the fighters and nothing else. So in this moment, obviously, you can see the referees in the neutral corner. Covington walks over to his corner. Now, this is the point when the arena changes in preparation for Usman's walkout. And what you'll notice here, let me just zoom in a bit closer. What you'll notice here is there's the neutral corner and there's the referee. So we've got the neutral corner where the P3 logo is here, and we've got the referee standing just in front of Covington, waiting to go over and speak to him. Now, I know this is not ideal, and this is probably one of the reasons why people felt that there was some weirdness about this. But fortunately, in the T-Mobile Arena, we've got the mega screen up above, and what you'll notice on this one is just from the side of the screen, you'll see the referee walk in wait for it, tap Covington on the back. As Covington turns to look, he offers a hand. You can see here. So I just wanted to clear this up just to make sure that, you know, people know there was no foul play. And the point when the arena turns to black is the point when Usman's lights come on and then he starts his walk. So that's the reason why, you know, it was Covington first. A couple of other examples, obviously. Mendes here, it's not always a handshake. Sometimes it could be a fist bump. There's a fist bump with Izzy. Fist bump with Gastelum, who's on the other side of the octagon for that fight. Same with Vettori. I just wanted to clear that up just to make sure that, you know, you don't start the fight feeling like there was something untoward going on, because it's just not the case. Now, what I also want to do with this one, I want to score this fight as I go through. I've watched this, as you can imagine, about 300 times. It's an interesting fight to score. It's very much a fight of two halves. I feel like Covington starts well, and I feel like Usman was quite stiff in the early rounds. I feel like he looked a little bit rigid. He was very much single shot based, whereas Covington started off a bit looser, and he was throwing, a more variety of shots. He was also rolling and slipping and moving his head in situations where Usman was maybe getting cracked with a few right hands on the temple and stuff. So for me, that first round was fairly clear for Covington. I felt like Usman did good work, but I don't feel like he did enough work to win the round. It doesn't mean he didn't put some water in the basement for later on, though, which is where the fight starts to change. So, I mean, the first round, it was all body shots from Usman. You got that right hook that he was digging and the right front kick. Colby was throwing more, as I said. And when it comes to the actual strike statistics, so Covington had more headshots and low kicks. He had 27 headshots compared to 20 for Usman, and low kicks he had 5 compared to 3 for Usman. But then Usman landed more to the body. He landed 11 shots compared to 7 for Covington. So Covington head strikes and leg strikes, Usman working to the body. Like I said, I don't think he did enough to win the round, but I feel like Usman did enough to invest for the later rounds. 10-9 Covington first round. Okay, second round. Same thing again. Usman's landing single powerful shots. Covington is there with more volume. He's peppering. He keeps cracking him in the temple, and there's a couple of times where he kind of knocks Usman off balance. I don't necessarily feel like Usman was hurt by the shots. I don't think they were concussive blows, but I do feel like they were enough to knock him off balance, especially because he was a little bit stiff and a little bit rigid and tense, which is one of the reasons why trash talking and getting inside your opponent's head is good, because it does make them anxious. You know, I shit talked Marcus Davis all the way into that fight, and then when I arrived on fight day, I was like, oh God, I got to back this up. It creates pressure on both sides. Pressure for him because he didn't want to lose to me because I'm such a loudmouth, and pressure on me because I've been such a loudmouth. I've now got to walk the walk because the talk is done, and now it's time to, you know, put up or shut up. And I think there was pressure from both sides, but I think Covington, it worked really well for him because he stayed relaxed. He stayed in the moment, kind of working Usman. So again, second round, I felt like it went 10-9 to Covington. Now there was a moment in this, and you can see I've got a bit of show and tell for you as well. I want to show you a few things. The controversy in the second round was about this kick which was below the belt. And I mean, you can see it was below the belt there. We can see that it's below the belt because what I'm noticing, in fact, it's probably better on the replay, but I'll show you now here. What you'll notice is that the first thing that lands is Covington's big toe, and it's landing, I would say, probably 6 inches below the belt line. And you know that that's the first thing that makes contact is because his foot rolls into the kick from it. Like you can see how his big toe bends back. You can see how his big toe's bent back here. And then the kick rolls into the midsection. Now, I don't think it hurt Usman particularly. I don't think it was a really bad low kick. But what I will say is that you have to understand the mechanics of your protective equipment down there. Now, there are a few different things that you can use. Back in the day, and I'm pretty sure you can't use these anymore. There are surely certain areas of the world where you can't use in MMA. This is an old tie cup. I mean, these are metal. And the way that is tied on is it's kind of like a thong. They are incredibly uncomfortable. I never liked wearing these. They were never very comfortable for me. Most fighters don't wear these now. I would hazard a guess that both of these guys are wearing a more modern cup. So this kind of goes by the by, but these do come undone. They come loose. And sometimes you have to stop a fight and have to get it tied back in correctly. And, the protective equipment's important. Same as if the mouth guard comes out. It needs to go back in as soon as it can because we don't want people losing teeth. That's a traditional old style guard. Most of the time people wear these now. Now, this is my preference, as if you're bothered about what kind of groin guard I like to use. This is my preferred groin guard. Plastic Shock Doctor. And it sits in a strap like this. And what you'll notice is that this is an elasticated waistband and then 2 elasticated straps that hold it in. So the cup sits in that spot there, and then that sits over your underwear, underneath your fight shorts. The problem with these things is that they're not always great. Now, I used to wear one of these. You'll see when I'm fighting, you'll see that I've got tap out runs all the way around my waist. That was a pair of undershorts that I wore over just to kind of additionally hold it into place. They're not great. They do move. And when you do get caught sometimes, they tend to get dislodged a little bit. Sometimes you can get hit clean on the groin and it can really fucking hurt. Other times you can get hit and it can nudge the cup into the groin and that can be uncomfortable. It's like And I'm speaking from experience as well. And so this is what I used to wear. I used to wear this all the time. This same cup can also be coupled with this, which is what I imagine both of these guys are wearing. Now this, you can hear how old these are because I have saved the waistband to stretch them to show you how old the elastic is. I forgot my cup for the Amir Sadallah fight, and the UFC gave me these when I got to the arena. So as you can see that's where the cup goes inside that. These are just, I've never liked these. They've never felt particularly secure. It sits the cup just above your nuts, which is not ideal because if you do get hit, it's more detrimental than anything. And again, wait for this elastic. Listen to how old these are, Jamie. Oh, they're no good. That's it. They're done. They're done. They're no good. I've never liked these. They never hold your cup in a very good position. So obviously, different types of groin guards have different types of reactions to different shots. Now, to me, what happens here, because if you've ever been kicked in the groin, if you've ever had this circumstance in a fight, when you see it, you feel it. Like you'll hear, Felder's always talking about the cup check. You'll hear him go, oh, because you put yourself in that moment. You put your nuts in their cup, which is a weird thing to say, but you can kind of feel what it feels like. And when I saw this, first thing I thought is, well, what's happened is here, Covington's kicked him across the top of his cup, so that big toe has gone into that kind of soft fleshy part right above your groin, which is not a nice area to get hit. Then what happens to me is it looks like his foot drags down the cup and pulls it. So again, elasticated waist, you get hit in the cup gets dislodged, or the foot drags down and the cup gets dislodged. It can be uncomfortable. And what the response that we see from Usman is it's not a devastating shot. He backs up and he's like, oh no, hang on, something's not right. And it is a delayed reaction. And of course, Covington being who he is, he's going to play the game. He's going to play the fake news game. He's going to put a spin on it, which is perfectly within his right to do. And it keeps the kind of the fun and the intrigue of the fight going. He keeps playing to the crowd. So as you can see, the referee points him over to his neutral corner, and in the other corner you can see Usman just kind of walking back and forth, adjusting his crown jewels and getting ready to continue. Now, so here's the replay. You can see the toes landing there, because at this point here, the foot, the surface, the top of the foot is facing up. Like, the instep is facing upwards. It's not until the foot makes contact that you actually start to see the foot roll over and you start to see the bottom of his foot. Can you see that? Foot comes in, and then you start to see the underside of his foot, the sole of his foot, because the toes roll into the groin. And that's below the belt line. You have to realize that's below the belt line, because you can see the line of the belt line there. That's the bottom of the belt line. So if you say the belt line's 2 inches, I would say there's 2 inches below the belt line before Covington's foot is landing, and the foot rolls and hits right on the belt line. Now, even if that shot hurt Usman to the body and his nuts were fine, the fact that it lands low, the fact that the cup is potentially dislodged, means that the official has to get involved and make sure that protective equipment is there, just like if it was a mouth guard. If the mouth guard comes out and there's a good opportunity to jump in, especially if it's straight away, the referee will jump in and give you your mouth guard. If your cup gets dislodged, it has to be put back in its place. So this, in my opinion, is what happens here. Usman gets hurt, his cup gets dislodged, and I thought I'd throw this in because I want you to understand that you'll actually see my tap-out waistband here, which is my over-undershorts, my undershorts that went over my undershorts to make sure my cup stayed in place, because these things are useless, believe me. Now, this is me against Mike Swick, UFC 105, and I thought it'd be kind of funny for you all to watch me get kneed in the groin, because it is kind of amusing. I actually did leave this clip in because, of course, there's lots of new fans that a lot of people think that McGregor invented the shoulder strike, and this was what, 2009. Watch Mike Swick smash me in the face with his bloody bony shoulder blade. You can see he's put his hand on the back of my head there, and he's going to do this, bang, and he's going to smack me right in the chin with his bony clavicle. Watch, it's a lovely shoulder strike. Whack. Fucking flattened my nose right across my face for a moment, which is why I get my head position back in. I just thought I'd leave that in there because, I have heard people talk about McGregor inventing the shoulder strike. I just wanted to make sure. Here we go. Look at that. As if it was prepared. There's my Shock Doctor strap. Not this one, because this is a newer one. You won't want to see that one. That's gross. This is the back of the strap, and then you can see my tap-out undershorts over the top, which are very much like these shitty old UFC ones here that just kind of hold everything together. Always made me feel more comfortable. Plus, you've seen people get their shorts pulled down in fights before. You don't want to see people's bare ass. So I decided I was going to wear an additional pair underneath. Anyway, this is the knee to the groin. There. Which you can see from this angle as it lands, and then what you'll see is you'll see Mike Swick's knee appear from the other side. And the reason I'm showing you this, there we go, referee jumps in. Look what I'm doing. I am fixing the position of my cup because it's just been kneed into my groin and it was very uncomfortable. Not enough to keep me out for 5 minutes and like, oh my God, making a big deal out of it. This fight was restarted 35 seconds later after this groin shot. So just going back to the Usman cup check, it happened at 2:01 on the clock, so 3 minutes into the round. He stopped for 32, 33 seconds. Like, it was an inconsequential shot. If he got hit really badly to the body, he had that full 5 minutes to recover if he'd have wanted it. He took 30 seconds to fix his cup and get back into it. It's exactly what I do here. Fix my cup, takes you a minute, takes your breath away, make sure the cup's in the right position. Mike Swick's looking over and waiting. Here's the replay. Okay. And you'll actually see how this twists. You actually see how this twists my shorts and my cup. There, look. So it's landing to a similar place that the toes landed. Of course, my shorts are over his knee. But it hits me and it twists my cup to the side. So the whole thing's just not comfortable. It's not ideal, but it's better than a full solid groin shot. Because a full solid groin shot, I may have needed the full 5 minutes. That was just a moment, you can see a look on my face here. that just for a moment you go, oh, okay, fix my groin. Okay, all right, I'm all right. No, let's carry on. Like, that's what Usman did. That's what I did here. It's the same circumstance. So I have to write off any foul play there as well, because I feel like the foot did land low. I feel like it landed in a position where it would dislodge the cup or interfere with the cup or do something that would force Usman to have to address that and readjust. There was a break. Covington protested immediately. The referee stepped in and gave Usman time to recover. He took 30 seconds, 35 seconds, and the fight was back in. So it's just inconsequential. It doesn't. I don't know. I'm only talking about it because it was brought up as if it was something. There was some foul play here, and I just don't think there was. Anybody that feels like there was something going on here. Cups get dislodged, things get moved, things get you get your cup kneed into your nuts or whatever, and you need to fix it. You need to make sure it's in the right position. Like there was a cricket player once that got hit with a cricket ball. I mean, this is the worst story ever. And the cricket ball hit him square on the cup. And as you know, a cricket ball, it's wood in it. It's wood and leather. Hit him on the cup. It actually split the plastic cup and pinched his skin into the cup. Like, it could have been a lot worse. This one could have been a lot worse. 30 seconds later, the fight's on. It didn't affect the second round. For me, so Covington, again, he was 32 for head strikes compared to 27 for Usman. Covington had better shots. I feel like he knocked Usman off balance a couple of times. I give the round 10-9 to Covington. So he's won the first 2 rounds for me. What I will say, though, is that Usman was still investing well in the body. So he had 11 body shots compared to 8 for Covington. But they were very, very impactful shots. Like you saw, and Covington's a tough dude. He hid those shots so well. But there were moments where you kind of see him go, and the commentators pick up on it. Like Usman was investing. He was slowly letting the air out of his tires. And it really has an effect as you go into the third round, which I'll explain in a second. But for the most part in the second round, it was single shots by Usman compared to multiple shots or well-timed shots by Covington. That was a nice sweeping. Although what I will say is if his knuckles, like you can see, his knuckles aren't quite turned into the punch. It was more of a ridge hand, which is a legitimate technique. Said Nurmagomedov has got a win by ridge hand in the UFC. You don't have to always turn the knuckles into the target to do the damage. The whole fist is a striking weapon. So there are lots of different ways that you can land a fist. Now this was a right hook, classed as a right hook, but it's more of a ridge hand position when you can see how his fist lands. Potentially, if he'd have turned the knuckles into the chin, it might have been more impactful, but you can't always land the perfect shot. It's just the nature of the sport. But what he did do is crack him and knock him off balance. And this is part of the reason why I say that Usman looked a bit stiff to me, because when he got hit, it looked like it kind of bothered him, upset his balance. When Covington got hit, he tended to roll it really quite well. So for me, the shots that Usman was landing to the head weren't really as consequential as the ones that Covington was landing to the head. But the ones that Usman was landing to the body, they were the ones that were going to pay dividends later in the fight. So, end of the second round, Covington's 2 rounds up, is my opinion. There's another good one. Look, there's that right hook. See, again, like, not quite landing perfect with the hook. As you can see, he's landing with the inside of the palm. Again, kind of not ideal, but impactful enough to make Usman, stagger and regain his balance for a second. Enough to win Covington on the scorecards for sure. So, 2 rounds in, Covington's up 2 rounds. Now the third round starts. And this is where you can see the investment of the shots from early on from Usman have started to pay dividends, because Covington's output just nosedives in this round. It's crazy. So in the first round, he threw 111 strikes. He landed 39. In the second round, he threw 97. He landed 41. In the third round, he threw 51 and he landed 8. So he goes from 35% success rate, 42% success rate, 15% success rate, and 15% of half of the shots that he's thrown in the first and second round. So there was a clear drop-off for Covington here. On the other side, you've got Usman, and he landed 29 shots with a 58% success rate. So he's throwing a lot less, and he's landing a lot more than 3 times the amount. That was a clear shift for me. Now, I felt like there was a clear shift in this fight because Covington had been hammered in the body so many times, and his energy had started to die off. And when we get into the last sort of 45 seconds, for me, Usman has won this round convincingly. There's not really any doubt about it. I wouldn't give it a 10-8 round to him because there was no knockdowns. There wasn't any significant damage done that I would say that scored it. I mean, even when Covington got cracked with the shots that were supposed to have broken his jaw, he still stayed on his feet. He still took them very well. It's very difficult to get him to show that he's hurt, which is one of the reasons why he's such a tough high-level competitor. I mean, most people can't take these punches from Usman and stay standing, as we saw from Masvidal and Burns. But then there's a bit of chaos here. Covington. There's a bit of chaos in this moment. Now, what happens to me here? Covington throws this kick. The kick lands. It's a decent kick, but Usman takes it really well. I don't think he was hurt by it, but it got his attention. Then he steps back in, you see. This is how you know he's not hurt, because after he takes the shot, He resets himself and then he steps back in. Now, the mistake that he makes here is that he steps back in on the straight line and Covington's got this left hand prepared for him. And he's going to fire this left hand right to the inside of this glove of Usman. And what you'll notice when this punch lands, look at where it's landed. I mean, it's not ideal. You can kind of see that his hand's kind of rolled backwards. There we go. I should do a Michael Jackson and just put one UFC glove on. I just want you to see the positioning of this hand here, because what you're noticing is that you can see the top of the back of the glove. So the contact of the punch is actually like that. That's what you're seeing. So closed fist, nothing illegal about it, but he's landing with the underside of the knuckle. So it's this part that's landing on the right eye of Usman. That's relevant because that punch hurts him. And one of the things that was raised about this is the fact that Usman goes from the eye that he gets poked in to the other eye, which does happen. There's no doubt about it. But there's also no doubt that he gets poked in the eye. So here you go. Here's the left hand from Covington. Bam, hits him right in the face. Good shot, right to the cheekbone. Usman steps back for a second. Covington's going to go head kick, and then that's where the eye poke happens. So I would say the first head kick was decent. The shot that does the most damage in this exchange was that straight left from Covington, which is followed almost immediately. And again, Usman is there defending. So it was a good shot, but he wasn't badly hurt by it. He still blocks the next kick, and then he gets kind of raked in the eyes. You can see the fingertips go in. The other thing that's worth noting to this is the response from Usman. Covington's a very tough individual. I have to say the same thing for Usman. These are two of the highest level combat athletes on the planet. They're both incredibly tough. If a person gets poked in the eye and they turn away like that, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they might be injured. You have to give them the moment to get the doctor in to make sure they're okay to continue, because people can lose eyes doing this. Like, it's not happened actually in a fight, but damage has been done to people's eyes that have resulted in them losing an eye. What's the Japanese fight? There's a Japanese fighter that did actually lose an eye in a fight. Nakai, I think his name is. Anyway, the point is, I'm going to put my one glove back on again. The point is that you can't deny that this was an eye poke. But what I will say, so here we go, wait for it. So there's the eye poke. You get an immediate reaction from Usman, who turns away. He goes to his left eye. Now, as Covington starts to close him down, I want you to pay attention to this hand of Usman here, because he's going to switch from one eye to the other. He's going left eye. Hold it. Right eye. Left eye. Right eye. And then the referee steps in and stops it just for a second. And again, Covington, he's going to play it up. Look at what Usman's doing, though. He is squinting. He is hurting. Now, you can't deny that this was an eye poke. If you're an official, you have to give the fighter the benefit of the doubt. You have to get the referee in, especially if they've had a reaction where it genuinely looks like they're in pain. So, here we go. Here's the replay. So here you go. Here you can see the eyes being reaching out. So the fingers reaching out to the eyes. And this comes onto a little bit of a gripe about these gloves, because they're not bad gloves, honestly. They're not bad gloves. The problem that you have is that when you close a fist and you've got wraps on, you are working against the glove to close your fist, which means that the habit is, because that's most comfortable, that is the most relaxed that my hand can be with those gloves. That's an effort. These are also a large. I'm actually a medium. These are also a large, but you've also got to bear in mind that I would normally have hand wraps under these as well. So this bit of space in here that is actually quite tight already, when I close my fist, now that has got a wedge of bandage in it, it's going to pull that even tighter. This is why these gloves need fixing. They need to be more like the Fairtex gloves that One Championship or Cage Warriors use, where they've got more of a curve in the pad. There's a very, very minimal curve in them. And if you're ever in the backstage of a UFC event, what you'll notice is that the corner teams, they get the glove and they stand there and they start doing this. And you've got one guy on one glove and one guy on the other, and they're stretching the gloves out to try and loosen up these finger points, because this is where it gets incredibly tight. It does pull the fingers open. I'm not excusing what happened here, because that looks like he's opening his fingers to aim him at Usman's face, and I will say probably the same for Usman later on as well. I think there's a bit of gamesmanship from both, and I do see that in other fights. There's a particular champion that has got several different tactics for poking in the eyes, and I'm not going to go into who it is or why, but I'm sure you could figure it out. And I'm not talking about John Jones. It's a tactic that can be used because the gloves allow people to get away with it. And this is why the gloves need fixing, right? If people keep poking, and this doesn't happen nearly as frequently in any other organization. Honestly, I've been watching MMA since I very first heard of it back in the mid-90s. The UFC is the place where the majority of the eye pokes happen. Pride never had these problems. One Championship very rarely has them. I don't see it in Cage Warriors. It happens consistently because these gloves need redesigning, and it is something I've spoken about before, and people don't like to hear it, and there's a lot of money been invested in these gloves, and that's one of the reasons why I'm anyway, that's a whole nother story. These gloves are flawed, and this is one of the problems that results in the gloves being this shape. There is no doubt that this is an eye poke. You can't deny that. So what that does is that affords Usman a moment to get the doctor in. What we notice when the doctor comes in, though, is that the main issue that Usman's having is the other eye. So the doctor's now wiping at the eye, and bear in mind, this was the eye that got poked. It's the other eye that he's wiping at, which again feeds into the, hang on a minute, there's something weird going on here. The reality is I don't think there is. If Usman got hit with a body shot that really hurt him, and then he got poked in the eye, he can take that time dealing with the eye to allow himself time to recover from the body shot. That is playing the rules. That is the game. What's the saying? Don't hate the player, hate the game. Covington's created an opportunity here by poking him in the eye for Usman to have this moment to gather himself. So if he was hurt by the head kick, if he was hurt by the straight left, or if something else had landed, say if he'd have been hit with a body shot or a low kick or whatever, in this moment he's been gifted an opportunity to recover because Colby poked him in the eyes. That's the only thing I can get out of this. And it goes back the opposite way a bit later in the fight as well. Now, this is right at the bell. And the reason I've pulled this is because it relates to something that goes, I'm looking like a dickhead sitting here with one glove on. This comes back around to something else a bit later in the fight where Covington's protesting to the official. Now, we talked about the closed fist from Covington. The one that did the damage to Usman's right eye was a closed fist. No denying that. What we see here, I'll just play it through full so you can see it. We see a lead hand from Usman, 1, 2, and then Covington looks at the referee and he protests that he got poked in the eye. So two things. One, just like the punch that Covington landed, it was a closed fist. You can see the knuckles turned underneath. So Covington's actually getting hit with the little finger knuckle in the eye, which can feel like an eye poke, but it isn't. And then Covington backs up, gets caught with a good right hand, backs up, turns straight to the referee to protest the eye poke. He doesn't do what Usman did. He doesn't turn away and go to his eye like, oh my God, I'm injured. He turns to the official and goes, hey, I've been fouled. You should do something about this. And then that's the end of the round. And there's a little bit of an interaction here. Now, the reason I left that in is because that was Covington taking his focus off his opponent and turning to the official to protest. Taking your eyes off your opponent because you're injured is one thing, and that's where the official will generally step in even if they've not seen an eye poke. Taking your eyes off the fight to complain to the official is only going to make the official feel like you're trying to play them here. You can't call your own timeouts. That's the story here. You can't say, hang on a minute, no, hang on a minute, I need a minute. You can't do that. The only person that can stop the fight is the referee, as we know. So that was the reason why I left that interaction in, was because of how it played out. He got hit with the knuckle of a glove. He protested to the referee like he was poked in the eye, but he didn't act like he was poked in the eye. So he called his own timeout. Now we've got a bit of audio in this. So this is at the end of the third round. Now, just before I move on to this, so where are we? So we've gone through the strike stats. Covington had decent output first, second. Third round, it dropped off massively. He landed 8 strikes, 5 to the head, 3 to the body. Usman landed 29 strikes in the third round, 58% success rate. Joe Rogan said after the eye poke as well, it's worth noting, he said there's no question about that one. Now, Usman was only out for 1:21. That was the period of time that was allocated to the fight being stopped, the doctor coming in and checking his eye, the official checking with the doctor, his eye's fine, his eye's not injured. Okay, Usman, you can see. Yes, I can see. Wonderful. We'll carry on with the fight. Took 1:21. So again, if Usman wanted to really bleed this, he could have had more time there if he'd have wanted to. But he didn't. He wanted to continue the fight. And then, as we saw at the end of the round, we saw the same thing happen the opposite way, a closed fist, etc. You get the point. Third round was 10-9 for Usman. You can't score it any other way based on the fact that Covington's output dropped off massively, and this is where Usman started to pick up. So I have Covington now 2 rounds up at the end of the third round. He won the first and second because he outworked Usman. But he also took enough damage, so when the third round started, Usman started to take over. This is where the fight shifts in the opposite direction. And Covington could feel it as well. As he goes back to his corner at the end of the third round, and you'll remember this, he sits on his stool, Conan Silveira starts coaching to him, and he says, I think I broke my jaw. And Conan starts to coach him, and then he turns and he goes, I broke my jaw. He says it to his other corner man, like he's trying to reinforce the point that his jaw's broken. And of course, this is a bit of this is like the kind of one of the stories that came out of it about the broken jaw. This is the spin that gets put on these things sometimes. I've actually got an Edgar Allan Poe quote here, which is, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. I'm going to play this to you so you can hear it, because I want you to consume it on your own terms and see how you feel about it.
Hold it. So we want to go to the end. You got 2 more rounds. I needed 10 minutes. All right. I needed 10 minutes. Hold yourself.
So I think I broke my jaw. He says that to Conan. Conan starts talking to him. We've got 10 minutes. And before Conan stops talking, he turns to his other corner man and he says, I've broke my jaw. This is the shot that the team in the truck pull. This is the shot that they say broke the jaw. And it's a good punch. It really is. He catches Usman with a jab to the eye. Usman comes back with that straight right on the chin. Really, really nice clean punch. Could have quite easily done a lot of damage to his jaw. There's another angle. Lovely punch. Really clean. So, of course, after this fight, there was a storyline about the fact that the jaw was broken and et cetera, et cetera. And I know that a lot of people still feel like Covington broke his jaw in this fight, but he didn't. And he says that he didn't. You'll hear here.
So the reason the internet thing came up is because it was one of the worst photoshops, let me say, in the history of the sport. Someone went and took an image off Google. They put your name. They put my name on it, Colby Covington, and first off, it never read. If you ever see an X-ray film, it never will read your name straight across. It'll look backwards.
So that's an interview with Brett Okamoto, where Brett puts the question in front of him, like, clear this up for us once and for all. There are still people, even though he says that believe that the jaw was broken. Okay, the top image here is the X-ray that was put out of Colby Covington's jaw. You can see that the fracture is here on the lower part of the jaw, and you can also see what Colby was talking about here, where it says Colby Covington, 1988. If you've ever had an X-ray, Colby's right. It would say Covington, Colby. Doesn't always have the date of birth, but if it would have the date of birth, it would have the whole thing and not just the year of birth. So, first of all, that seems odd. The other thing I want you to notice, and this is something else he said in the interview. He said that he doesn't have any caps on his teeth. He doesn't have any implants or anything. This is something on the front of his tooth, and you'll also notice that on this back tooth here, there's also a filling. So after I saw this, I thought to myself, well, they must have got that X-ray from somewhere. So I thought, right, mandible fracture, and I found this one. So this is not the Colby Covington X-ray. This is off a website called radiopedia.org/cases/mandible-fracture-1. The published date of this was December 31st, 2016. So this was published less than 3 years before the fight actually happened. The other thing as well, and you'll see this is the same thing, because it's the same tooth at the front, same filling at the back, same fracture. I mean, it's like spot the difference, isn't it? Oh, I fucked that one up. There's the fracture. It's like these are identical, aside from the Photoshop and a slight altering of the colouring of the photo. And the reason why I'm including this is just because I want people to understand that the spin gets put on these things sometimes. Spin is like the less consequential version of propaganda. When there are Nazis in Ukraine, elections are rigged, etc., etc. Like people use these things to prime their next move, and this is exactly what Colby was doing. It's a very clever thing to do. Just like he used that post-fight interview when he was in Brazil to prime his next move to stay in the UFC and on the roster and start getting better paid fights. Same thing. I don't know who photoshopped this, but the fact that Colby admits that this was a Photoshop and his jaw wasn't broken, and then the fact that I've managed to find the actual X-ray on a medical journal website, which the link is below, you can have a look yourself. And one other thing as well is, if we just focus on this for a second, have I got that? Here we go. So this is just a screenshot of that website, and this here where it says X-ray below, that is where I got that X-ray picture from. You can go on this website, radiopedia.org/cases/mandible-fracture-1. So this is where whoever did the photoshopping got that image from. You'll also notice that what it says here, which I don't think is the same as what happened at UFC 245. Good night out on the town, which deteriorated, left jaw pain. Patient data, 25-year-old male. So this was a 25-year-old male's jaw in 2016. It wasn't Colby Covington's. You can also go on here, and if you click on this little cross here into the citation and the case data, you'll also see that the print date is 31st of December 2016. So you can see where they got this from. You can see how this has been created. Like I said, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. And this takes me on to a slightly different topic. Same but different. When I was growing up, like, I've never particularly been into football. I know soccer, for everybody who's watching in the US, I've never particularly been into it. There were certain players that I liked, but it was never, not really much of a team player or anything like that. I liked to be on my own doing things a lot of the time. I grew up watching people like Stuart Pearce and Vinnie Jones, people that were vicious. They meant their tackles. They were trying to hurt people when they were trying to get the ball off them. It was a different kind of game. There was a point when I was in my teens where it became much more of a play to the referees. There's you see them laying on the side and like, oh no, my knee, and they're looking up at the referee to see if they're going to get the free kick that they want. I hate it. I didn't really like football in the beginning. That really puts me off. I don't like the drama. I don't like the rolling around on the floor, clutching your knee. I'm like, dude, it was the other leg. But it's going to happen in sports. It's going to happen when the stakes are high, when championships are on the line, when money's on the line. People are going to use things to create stories and narratives and noise around themselves to prime their next move, right? You've also got to remember that not everybody is in there to really have a scrap. If there's an opportunity to get a win without continuing to fight, sometimes we see it. And instinctively we know it. When you watch it, you know it. When I watch it, I know it. When the opponents watch their opponent putting on a show, they know it. It doesn't change the fact that sometimes it changes the outcome of a fight and it goes towards the person that's making the performance, just like a free kick will in a football match. So in this next clip, I want to talk a little bit about this. Now, I like Aljo. I got nothing against him. I really don't. I enjoyed this fight. I enjoyed the rematch. This was an uncomfortable watch, this first fight, because Aljo started well, but then Peter Yan started to work his way back into the fight, and Aljo started to look a little bit ragged and a little bit tired. And then as we remember, this happens. That looks like back of the head. Look at that. I'll come on to that in a bit. So this happens, a really lazy double leg from Aljo, who then goes down and he settles on the floor. He puts his knee down and his hand down. And what you'll see is the referee running around to the side. Now, around this point here, the referee goes, he's grounded. What you'll also hear from Peter Yan's corner is them saying, just punch. Just punch. As in, don't do anything else. Don't kick him, don't knee him, just punch. Now, I like Peter Yan. I really like Peter Yan. I enjoyed his fights coming through ACB, and if you go and watch his fight against Magomedov, he skirts the rules very, very carefully. He headbutts Magomedov. Like, he does what he can and what he can get away with, especially if he's frustrated at how his opponent's fighting, which is what this felt like. He was frustrated that Sterling wasn't standing and trading with him or fighting him like, with any kind of, I don't know, firmness. I don't know what the right word to put in there is. But there's this frustration on the part of Peter Yan here. Now, at the same time as his corner is shouting, just punch, you're going to see a little glance from Peter Yan. Where is it? He's going to lift his head up and he's going to look over as if he's looking to his corner. There. And this is where I disagree with some officials, because some officials would say that it was unintentional, it should have been a 2-point deduction, and then it should have gone to the scorecards. Now, my issue with that, I have a few. My issue with that, number one, Peter Yan's the world champion. He is one of the best fighters on the planet. If you're a professional athlete in any sport and you don't know the rules of your sport, that is your fault. Peter Yan doesn't need to hear that the referee's told him that he's grounded, because there's no reason why the referee would need to say that. That's purely optional. The referee doesn't need to offer that information at all. I'm not saying it's not useful, but what I'm saying is it's not required for the referee to offer that information. 2, Peter Yan is not necessarily... There's no requirement for him to understand English to fight on the UFC roster. He doesn't have to understand that the referee says he's grounded. No onus on the referee to say anything. No onus on Peter Yan to understand it. We never get hearing tests when we signed to the UFC. There was no responsibility for him to be able to hear it. So that's 3 things. When we get in these high pressure situations, sometimes we can tune things out. I've got a quote here from hearingconsultants.com. Link again is below. When your body responds to stress, the overproduction of adrenaline reduces blood flow to the ears, affecting hearing. And I've been in this situation. Sometimes you can't hear your corner. Sometimes you can't hear the referee. You can't hear the crowd. Weirdly, I can just tune into my sister's voice. That's the one thing that kind of rises above everything. Generally, in high-stress situations, you get this audio sensory deprivation and you start to tune things out, which is why we can't complain at fighters for striking after the bell. I'm not saying that sometimes it's not malicious, because sometimes it is, but say in the case of Jermaine Durandamy against Holly Holm, that's on the official to get in the way. The bell is for the official. The 10-second is for the official. It's not for the fighters. We don't have any responsibility to know when the round comes to an end. Okay. Askar Askarov, hearing impaired. You can't expect him to know when the fight's over. Matt Hamill, Bisping, fell out in the Ultimate Fighter house because Matt Hamill wasn't hearing the bell. Of course he wasn't. He's hearing impaired. There's no responsibility for Peter Yan to understand English, to have heard that, but there is a responsibility for him to understand the rules in which he's fighting under, especially if he's the champion in this weight class. And again, I like Peter Yan, but if you look at his family photo, and congratulations, he's got a beautiful family. He's got his little boy and his little girl and his beautiful wife, and he's got dead eyes. He has got great white shark eyes. Like, if you received that through as a Christmas card, the family might open it up and go, oh, look at that, the Yan family. And then the dad is looking over the shoulder going, shit, I owe that man money, is coming for me. He's got crazy eyes. Peter Yan's a lunatic. If he wasn't doing this, he would probably be getting in trouble somewhere else, or he would probably join the military or something. I know this because of a story he told me himself once when he was going for a boxing championship in Russia. It was the night before the main event, the finals of the championship, and he got into an altercation on the street and broke both his hands and lost his opportunity to win the championship. Like, that is the crazy switch. Shall I fight tomorrow and win the championship? I'm going to fight this guy now and break both my hands. It's not the best of calculations sometimes. He does tread the rules very carefully. And I will make the argument that he knew what he was doing here, which is why, although what happens in the aftermath with Sterling to me is kind of ugly, that environment, that situation was created by the lack of strong officiating by the referee, a lack of decisiveness from the doctor, and the fact that Peter Yan fouled him in a high-profile, high-pressure situation and gave him the opportunity to find a way out. And I'm not saying this wasn't a bad knee, because it was a bad knee. I'm also going to point out this little headbutt before, because he drops his head onto the back of Aljo's neck. I mean, if that's not a headbutt, I don't know what is. Bum, 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 bum. Headbutt, Aljo lifts his head, and then the knee follows. And it's a good knee. It connects really well. Just before I move on from this, because I like debating this with officials, because they have different opinions. Again, deduct 2 points from Peter Yan, go to the judges' scorecards. My issue with that is that most likely it would have ended in a draw, which means that Peter Yan leaves with his belt. He landed an illegal shot. The fight came to an end. You can't allow him to leave as the champion. It's bullshit. So he should have been disqualified. But the decision should have been made much quicker. The fight wasn't called until 3 minutes in. And the problem with that is that it put Aljamain Sterling in a position where he had to put on this Oscar-winning performance in order to get the officials to do what they should have done in the first place. I don't like the way he did it, and I don't like what happened. But I also have to acknowledge that Peter Yan made a silly mistake by giving Aljo the opportunity to find his way out of this fight with the belt around his waist. And the heat that Aljo got from this, I know you know instinctively that this is a performance that he's putting on. And I'll show you why as well. So, where are we? At 2 minutes... Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, no, I forgot to put this in. Because as if you watching me get kneed in the groin wasn't enough, I thought I'd show you me getting kneed in the head as well. This is my UFC debut, UFC 89 against Akihiro Gono. Now, the first knee doesn't land. But the second one caught me pretty good. You'll see on the replay. The second one catches me pretty good at the side of the head, kind of in a similar place to the one that Aljo gets caught with. Now, this wasn't as impactful as the one that Aljo got caught with. I can tell you that for sure, because I was dazed at this point, and what you'll see, in fact, I'll just play it. I don't remember the fight past this point. This is the moment, and memories around fights are vague anyway. This was the point when my memory of the fight switches off, and going back and watching fights in hindsight can kind of fill in the gaps sometimes. Like the Carlos Condit fight, I remembered that fight up to the point where I hit him with a left hook and felt like I'd hurt him and went chasing forward. The next thing I remember was opening my eyes and there are doctors over me. And if you watch the fight, you'll see me sit up and I go, fuck, because I knew what had happened. And then 20 minutes later, we're in the ambulance on the way to get my brain scanned, and we're having laughs about it because it was stupid of me. I threw 3 left hooks in a row, schoolboy error, dropped my hand, Condit caught me with a wicked shot, fair play to him. Like, we learn these lessons. The point to be made, though, and I've only been knocked out a couple of times, once by Condit, once at training at American Top Team, and I lost a week of memory on that one. And because I had no video to go back, I couldn't fill in those blanks, so it's still all vague. Carlos Condit, I can watch that back and I can remember those steps that I was going through and prompt my memory to fill in the gaps. In this one, I don't remember anything after this point here. And you can see, because I get caught with this second knee, and I kind of fall onto my face a little bit, which is not a good look for me. This is the point, and I remember being in my own head at this point, which is really odd. I remember being in my own head at this point and looking up at the screen and going, fuck, I just got knocked out. I've got no idea what happened. I had no idea what happened. I was looking up at the screen to try and figure out what had happened. Anyway, I got caught with that knee. It was, a minute or so left at the end of the round. Minute and 8, I think. Yeah, minute and 8. 35 seconds later, the fight's restarted. Like, I'm gathering myself here. Mergliata takes him away, gives him a warning. Don't deduct a point. It gives him a warning. Sends him over to the neutral corner. And I'm over in the corner trying to get my shit together, trying to figure out what's going on. Here we go. Here's the replay. First one doesn't land. It glances off my arm. The second one gets me pretty good. Where are we? That's not a bad knee, that. And let me add this as well. I mean, Gono was a Pride veteran. I mean, he's one of the toughest fights that you could get in your debut. He was such a riddle because he didn't want to stand and fight. It was a very, very difficult fight to have. But he's a Pride fighter. He's used to kneeing people in the head on the ground. If it was up to me, I would bring in knees to the head on the ground. If for no other reason than to save this confusion all the time about what's legal and what's not. But if you deduct 2 points and Peter Yan walks away with his belt, there's no reason for people to believe that that's an illegal technique because he's still the champion. You have to be punished if you foul, and as a champion, you have to set that example for the rest of the sport. So a champion, in my opinion, should be held even more accountable for not knowing the rules. If I'm playing cricket and the ball's coming at me and I knock it out of the way with my shin pad so it doesn't hit the wicket, LBW, leg before wicket. I can't say, oh, I didn't know that was illegal and just get away with it. I'm still punished for it, even if I didn't know the rule. Same thing with the offside rule in football, soccer. I could score a winning goal of a match and it could have been an offside kick. And I can't make that argument because it's just the rules. That was a downward knee. It's just the rules. Tough shit. You lost your belt. You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have headbutted Magomedov. You shouldn't have kneed Aljamain Sterling in the head. Even if Aljo was putting on a performance, the opportunity for him to put a performance on was created by Peter Yan making that mistake. And like I said, 35 seconds later, we're back at it. Like, these knees aren't that devastating. You know, you can get caught with a knee and you can get dazed and you can get your shit together and get back into the fight. This is 2 minutes later when Aljo's looking at some kind of apparition. I don't know whether like Obi-Wan Kenobi's appeared to him or something, but like he's like, I have nothing against Aljo, but I know this is a performance, and I feel sorry for him because it's caught on camera for the rest of the time. People knowing he was putting on a performance because the officials didn't do their fucking job in this moment. Mark Smith should have stopped this fight as soon as he could see that Aljo was not able to get back to his feet. Like, this is 2 minutes after the knee had landed. The fight's not called until 3 minutes after the knee's landed. And I want you to watch this moment here. This is where Aljo's looking off at Obi-Wan Kenobi in the distance, wondering what the hell's going on. And then I love this eye roll. I mean, this is 101, like Oscar-winning performance. Like right there, like Mark Smith, done. The fight's over. The fight's over. He can't even sit up without feeling nauseous and looking like he can't focus on anything in front of him. This nonsense between the referee and the doctor, this is what needs to be fixed. You need someone in there that can officiate and that can hold that shit together. Because unfortunately, this messing around and waiting to call the fight and stuff, of course you want Aljo to recover and you want the fight to continue, but it's not going to happen. He's already showed he's too injured for the fight to continue. So you have to make that call. You have to save him from himself and not force him to put this performance on. I'm sure that there are some fans of the American Office out there the stupid thing that comes to my mind is Andy Bernard when he's talking to this girl that he's just met and he puts on a British accent because he's nervous. And then all of a sudden he realizes, oh shit, now she thinks I'm British. I've got to stick with the story. When you've already decided that you're going to spend 2 minutes selling this knee to the head because you don't want to fight to continue, you now can't stop selling that story, which then gets worse and worse. So like this is 2 minutes in. What's the conversation? This is 3 minutes in. This is the point when the fight's called, when he's standing up and like looks like a drunk old man, getting off the floor of a pub when he's just fallen over and his mate's helping him back to his seat. This is 4 minutes in. At this point, Ben Askren was walking out of the cage asking what the hell had happened with Masvidal. Like, he was on his own feet. He was walking out of the cage. He was confused, lost that chunk of memory because it was a dead bug knockout. This wasn't a dead bug knockout. He was all right. He knew where he was when it had happened. 4 minutes later, he's still pretending he's not knowing what's happened. He can't stand up. He's got someone holding him up. He's got poor old Ray Longo, who was brought in on the story. He's like now a part of the narrative, unfortunately. And Aljo is still going to cling to this story because he has to, because the officials put him in a position where he had to put on this performance to get the outcome that unfortunately he was deserving of. And this brings me back to one other thing as well, because like I said, we know instinctively when someone's being real or not. In the commentary, Daniel Cormier said, I've got it written down here, Daniel Cormier said, "This is John Jones, Anthony Smith, but Smith took the high road and kept fighting." Now, the language is important in there. Took the high road, which would suggest that you should just suck it up and carry on. Was it the right thing for Anthony Smith to do? He would have been the light heavyweight champion. He might get shit on like Aljamain Sterling does for this performance, but he would still have that credential. He'd still have a belt on his shelf at home. I mean, he might not look at the belt and feel very good about himself, and I don't know how Aljo feels when he looks at the belt. However, or after this fight, say. But the point still stands. Immediately, DC was like, nah. Like, he's got the option to carry on if he wants. He could take the high road and carry on if he wants. But they kind of knew that he wasn't going to. Okay. Enough picking on Aljo, poor guy. Because again, the situation was created by Peter Yan. You can't take that away from Aljamain Sterling. He was kneed illegally. Like, he may have been up on the scorecards. He may have felt like he was gassed and the fight was slipping away from him and live to fight another day. Oh shit, I get the belt in this situation as well. That's a bummer. This is another good example, and this is one of the worst performances. This is really ugly. And what's great about this one is Paul Felder is in the commentary, and Paul Felder is a trained actor, like qualified trained actor. He's very, very talented thespian. Immediately, Paul Felder was like, nah, this is bullshit. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this at all. So this is Luana Pinheiro against Randa Marcos, and unfortunately, Randa knew as well. See, a lovely hip throw there, and a little scramble, and then an up kick. I mean, I don't feel like I need to say anything, but look. The best thing to look at is Randa Marcos's face, because watch, kick. We're watching Pinheiro. She turns. She looks at Marcos. She looks at the referee. She puts her hands out, gets on her feet, and then she falls backwards. The same thing again. It's like a. Honestly, like, sign her up for a premiership team or something. Like, it just looked ugly. We don't want this in our sport, but fighters have to realize that if they don't know the rules, they're giving their opportunity to their opponent to take this way out. And that's what happens here. And Randa knows as well. Look, straight away she apologizes. And then she sits there for a minute and she looks at this performance that Pinheiro's doing. Honestly, I mean, facial expressions say anything. She's like, fuck, she's going to bleed this. That's exactly what that face says to me. I might be wrong, but that's what it says to me. But the continuation of this, and I've been in this situation before in Japan. I got disqualified for a groin shot against Yoshiyuki Yoshida, and he was on his way to get back up after the groin shot, and his cornerman told him to lay back down again, and I got disqualified. It's very frustrating. I have been on the receiving end of this. But the opportunity was created because I wasn't well guarded with my technique. I threw an inside low kick that slid up and caught him in the groin. I didn't intend it, but it offered him the opportunity to get out the fight with the belt over his shoulder, which is what he did, which is what Aljo did, I feel, in that fight, which is what Luana Pinheiro does here. And this performance is just, and poor old Randa knows as well. She knows that she's screwed herself here. And like, if you've been knocked out, you're not rolling around on the floor like this. Like I don't know. Like the way she falls back with her hands. I mean, you tell me. I just don't believe it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. It just seems too controlled a fallback. Kick. Like at this point, when she gets kicked, knees on the ground, there's no way that she would kick herself up onto her feet and then throw her hands back. That's a control of mechanics that you don't have if you've been concussed. And the way that she acts here, you would think that she has been kicked in the head full power with a soccer kick. Look, she looks at Randa. I mean, come on. This made me angry when I watched this, because I don't want to see this get involved in the sport. I used to quite like football. I didn't mind watching it. I can't stomach it now. I can't deal with these people rolling around on the grass, clutching their ankles, and it's just an ugly way of competing. I feel, and I don't buy this. And immediately she's rolling around. And look at this. I mean, this is like a couple of minutes later. Like, she can't get up. She's doing the, where am I? What's going on? And Randa fucking knows. She knows she's looking at her and she's like this. This girl's playing me here. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And neither did the commentators, and neither did her opponent. But you can't deny that she got kicked in the face, and she was a downed opponent. So you have to go with the rules. You have to abide by what the rules say. If she can continue, and you decided that was an impactful enough shot to change the outcome of the fight, you can deduct a point. This was in the first round. There was no way that this was going to go to the scorecards. Randa got disqualified. That's the way that this played out. Pinheiro was carried bodyguard style by Andre Pederneiras, and I like Andre, he's a good dude. But again, poor old Ray Longo, he was brought into this narrative because his fighter was putting on this performance. She was carried out the octagon, back to her dressing room. You know, Whitney Houston singing in the background and all kinds of shit. It was just ugly. It was just ugly. I mean, I left this in just because it's a bit funny, but it always reminds me when I see these two clips, it reminds me of Bloodsport when Van Damme gets the fucking salt in his eyes and he's, come on. I mean, Van Damme, he's not the best of actors, but that's his full-time job. I can still tell he's bullshitting in this scene here, and I know for sure those two are bullshitting just because I don't buy it myself. The commentators didn't buy it, and I don't feel like the fans bought it either. The overall point to make is that sometimes an opportunity can be created out of a lack of control that gives the other person the win. John Jones has got one loss on his record. It was a downward elbow against Matt Hamill. He was in Mount at the time. Can Matt Hamill beat John Jones? Of course he can't. Was Matt Hamill beating John Jones at the time? Of course he wasn't. Was it an illegal elbow? Unfortunately, yes, it was. I'd get rid of the downed elbow rule, 12-6 elbows, because it's nonsense. I'd get rid of the rule that you can't knee an opponent in the head. I'm on the fence about soccer kicks. I can be convinced otherwise. But knees to the head is just, it's sport. It's a fight. Fuck it. Like, don't be there. Aljamain Sterling, don't rest on your knees because he can knee you in the head in this position. But if he can't, then I'm going to stay here. Anyway, that was my bit about spin. And the reason why I wanted to put that in is because I want you to understand that sport is not honest. Politics are not honest. People are not honest. People will play a game and they will take the advantages that you give them. If you're a young fighter, know the rules. Go and do a refereeing and judging course. Know what the referee's looking for and what you can and can't do, where the legal striking areas are and where they are not. And go and learn what the judges are looking for so you know how these rounds are being scored for or against you. These are all very important things. If you are a professional, it's your job. Go and do it. I did a refereeing and judging course when I started commentating. It was too late. I wish I'd have done it when I started fighting professionally. I don't think they existed then, but there were so many things I took from it, and I was like, oh, I could have done that. I didn't know I could do that. John Jones is really good at finding ways through the rules that most other fighters don't. There are lots of things that you can do that people don't do. There are lots of joints, there are lots of bones that you can attack that would break that people don't even think about now. Like, look at how much the calf kick has changed. What happens if people start targeting weaker bones in the body, like the collarbone or something? There's lots of things that you can do that can get you around the, get you through the fight and do a lot of damage without you crossing over to that side where you're going to give your opportunity to your opponent. Okay. So 4th round. First round, 10-9 Covington. Second round, 10-9 Covington. Third round, 10-9 Usman. Covington's dropped off. We're starting the 4th round. Same thing again with the 4th round. For me, Usman was landing decent early. Usman was landing decently all the way through. He was hurt early in the first sort of 30 or 40 seconds. Covington had a bit of a burst and Usman looked unstable on his feet for a moment. But immediately after that, he goes back to that just thudding, consistent bah, 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 bah. It feels, when I watch his fights, it makes me feel like, it makes me imagine what it would be like to be under artillery fire, because it's just heavy and thudding, and you can feel the ground shake around you, and you never quite get your bearings, because like, this is what he's so good at. And because he's invested in the body in the first and second round, because he's now potentially, hurt the jaw of Covington, didn't break it, because he's hurt the jaw of Covington in the third round, there's a lot of work invested in the body of Covington, which is now starting to pay off for Usman. So the shots that he was landing were more impactful. If you watch the 4th round, which it's a competitive round, and when the striking exchanges are competitive, you have to go to the next levels in the criteria: aggression and octagon control. For me, they were both fairly aggressive by comparison. I mean, it's difficult to separate them, so then you go to octagon control, and Usman was pushing him around. And this is where the impactfulness of the shots and the damage goes into Usman's side. He was making more of the shots that he was landing, and he was controlling the octagon because of it. So for me, 4th round was a 10-9 for Usman, and for those reasons specifically. Now, the one bit of controversy about this round was 35 seconds left with the eye poke. There is no way you can deny that that's an eye poke. Covington gets jammed in the face. Now, one thing I do want to just talk about is this arm here of Usman, because there was a suggestion that this is outreached. These are outreached hands. At this point here, he's not doing anything illegal. When you've got Southpaw v Orthodox in particular, you do have a lot of play with the lead hand, because the person that controls the lead hand controls the jab. So they generally control the outside foot, which is key. So there is always that play. You can grab the wrist and the hand of your opponent. What you can't do is extend your fingers towards the face of your opponent. And that's what happens here as Covington moves in. So at this point, Usman's not doing anything wrong. That's the point when he starts to do something wrong, when his fingertips go towards the eyes of Covington. Now, it seems to me like he was trying to palm him in the face, because you can see how his palm goes into his mouth. But there's no doubt that the fingers are still in the eyes. No doubt. I'm not going to tell you whether he was doing that intentionally or by accident, just like I'm not going to do the same thing with Covington, because I'm not inside their brains. I'm not saying that they weren't doing it intentionally, because these guys really don't like each other, and I can think of other fights that have been high profile where the guys don't really like each other at all, and there's eye pokes in those as well, because people will do whatever they can. This is warfare. You are trying to hurt your opponent without crossing that barrier and getting caught by the rules. The reason why this is relevant in my eyes, though, is because, yes, it was absolutely an eye poke. I can't deny that it was an eye poke. But what I can tell you is that the way that Covington reacts is not the same way that Usman reacts when he gets poked in the eye. Whether that's because Covington would rather protest to the referee, or whether he's not a good actor as Usman, or whether Usman was actually more hurt and Covington wasn't. These are all possibilities. But when he turns to the referee, look at this. He doesn't even wipe his eye. The first thing he does is he turns to the referee. And the referee calls time. Now, what you can't do in a fight is call timeout yourself. If I'm a competitor, I can't go, hang on a minute. You can't do it. Your opponent is within their right to keep fighting until the referee gets involved. So in the moment where Covington feels like he's been poked in the eye, he then turns to the referee. He's calling his own timeout, which you can't do. Of course, what happens there, the official jumps in and he calls timeout. Right, now there's a bit of an interaction. That's the first time that Colby turns away and goes to his eyes. But he does for a moment, and then he turns back to Usman and he starts shit-talking him. And they're shit-talking at each other. Now the damage on Colby's face is from the punches. There's no damage to his eyes here because he would be wiping his eyes if those fingers had actually done any damage. I've had to go to hospital because I've actually severed the white of my eye with someone's fingertips before. That someone's nail cut the white of my eye, and my eye was bleeding like from the middle of it. It was really weird. I had to go to the hospital. They put drops in. I had to wear an eye patch. I looked like a pirate. I thought it was fucking great. Covington wasn't hurt by that eye poke. He was eye poked, but he wasn't hurt by it, which is why he doesn't react the same way that Usman does. It's why when it happens, he turns to the referee instead of turning to the fence. It's important to make that distinction because it also shows you how there's no foul play in this scenario. Because in the moment that Usman gets poked in the eye, he looks hurt. Might just be a really good actor. He might have been really hurt. Either way, the referee sees the eye poke and he has to get involved because that is the rules. If someone gets poked in the eyes, you have to bring the doctor in to make sure they're okay. I never at any point here got the impression that Colby needed the doctor. The damage that was on his face was there already. He also wasn't wiping at his eye. He was talking to the referee. Then time's called, and then he wipes his eye, Andy Bernard with his English accent. But then immediately he gives it up because he turns back, and he's looking at him directly. He's not wiping his eyes, he's complaining. Now, let me just read to you the transcription of what the referee says here. The reason why is the wording is important. Because remember what I said at the end of the last round when Covington was like, hey, he's just hit me in the face, and he basically called his own timeout. He's just done the same thing again here. He's called his own timeout to complain about the eye poke. Time. Listen, come here. Listen. Colby, hold time. Hey. Listen, Colby, listen to me. You see why the podcast is called what it is. Listen to me. Come here. Please, come here. Listen. I know it's chaotic. We're in a fight. We're going to keep it clean. You understand. Okay? No more timeouts. Let's go. If in the next 10 seconds, Usman volleys Covington in the groin, do you really think that the referee was going to go, no, you got to keep going. I don't care. I called no more timeouts. Of course he wasn't. What he was saying to Covington is that you can't call your own, don't call any more timeouts. Don't keep stopping the fight on your terms because that's my job as the official. And this is where you need a good official to hold these things together sometimes, especially in a fight that was so chaotic. It's also worth noting that when the official went into the changing rooms before the fight and went to speak to Colby Covington, Colby said to the official, I am glad that you're my referee. And the referee was there with several other officials from the commission as well. So there's an acknowledgement from both fighters that they are happy that this guy is officiating. And I've been in the same situation before. I feel confident that he can hold the fight together. That's what he's doing here. I know it's chaotic. We're in a fight. We're going to keep it clean. You understand. Okay, no more timeouts. Let's go. As in, don't call any more timeouts. Now I want you to have a quick look at Usman's reaction, and just so you can gauge the difference between the two and the reason why it was important for the doctor to come in and have a look at Usman's eyes, because he could have been injured. And with these poor design of gloves, it's going to happen at some point. It's amazing that it's not happened yet. So here we go. Like, look at, like, you've just got to like look at the way that Usman turns away. He sells it to me. If I was the referee, I would think he's been injured with that eye poke. The fact that after the point you can go and watch him go to the other eye that was injured by the punch, that's by the by. In that moment, in that chaotic environment where you see that happen, you have to give that fighter the benefit of the doubt that they got poked in the eye, especially if they respond the way they did. I have no doubt that if Colby had turned away and been like, oh, my eye, the doctor would have been brought in to check it. And the referee has admitted that he didn't see that eye poke because he was on the other side of the fight when it was happening. But if he'd have reacted the same way that Usman did, I still feel like he would have done. And it's worth noting that you can see the direction that the referee comes in here, because the eye poke is right off camera here, and you'll see how quickly he comes in. Because he sees it, he acknowledges that that's an eye poke. He does also acknowledge the fact that the one in the fourth round, he didn't see it. But again, I feel like if Colby would have reacted like he was actually hurt, I feel like he would have brought the doctor in and given him that time. That's just my opinion, though. Okay, where are we? Fourth round. Okay, so we've talked about that fourth round. We've talked about the fact that for me it was quite an even round, but for me Usman was more impactful, and he had octagon control. That was the deciding factor for me when it came to scoring. I gave the fourth round 10-9 Usman. So now we've got Covington's won the first two rounds 10-9. Usman's won the second two rounds 10-9. And this is on my scorecards. Not all the judges agreed with me here, but thereabouts. So we're going into the fifth round, even on the scorecards, but not even in reality, because the damage that Usman did to Covington in the first two rounds when he was losing has now started to pay dividends in the third and fourth. The work rate that Covington had in the first two rounds won him those first two rounds, but has now dropped off because the work that Usman has done to his body and his legs. So now we're going into the fifth round. Covington is hurt, he's tired, he's being backed up in this fight, and Usman, again, he's landing clean, powerful shots. And one other thing that's worth noting as well is as Usman's about to walk out for the fifth round, his brother in his corner, his little big brother in his corner, shouts, his jaw's broken, which suggests to me that someone in the corner had either received a text message who was watching from home and heard Covington say that, or they were listening to the comms themselves and they heard Covington say that. So that broken jaw narrative then finds its way into this fight in the fifth round, which is obviously, one of the reasons why Usman went into this fifth round with all this confidence. And he put it on him. Walked him down, landed good shots. This is the first knockdown. Nice, clean, straight down the pipe. Can't deny that. Whack. Covington's legs go and he lands. Tough dude. Scrambles back to his feet straight away. You can see the referee circling around to make sure he's okay. You can see Covington's turning. Referee gets out the way to give him some space. And Usman's going wild at him, trying to crack him with the finishing shot. He gathers his composure. I mean, what are we doing? Where are we? 108 for the first knockdown and 101 for the second. Oh, 1 minute on the clock for the second. There we go. And he goes down. Now, this is the fight finishing sequence. Covington's looking up here, but it's also worth bearing in mind he's been knocked down twice. 2 concussive blows. Usman goes palm on the back of the head, and Covington reaches for a shot, and Usman sprawls on him. Now let's analyse these shots. We'll look at it first, and then I'm going to explain to you what the back of the head is, and then I'm going to reinforce that point. So, first shot's on the tricep. Now, second shot does catch the back side of the head. But what I also want you to notice is the ripple that goes through this bicep where you can see that Colby's tattoo. Because what that shows me is that the first thing that the punch makes contact with is the arm. You can see it hitting in the... Ooh. You can see it hitting there. And you can see that the muscle indents. The ripple goes through the tricep. So yes, it might catch him on the backside of the head a little bit, but it's not particularly egregious. Now the next one, I would say that's a back of the head shot, because you can see the direct. Colby's looking directly down at the floor, and that shot comes directly down to the back of the head, which bumps his head to the canvas. But it's also worth noting that Usman lands that shot and then doesn't throw to the same target. He goes tricep and then under to the head. So you can't say that his intention was to strike into the back of the head. And you've got to remember that this is all happening in seconds. I mean, we're literally talking seconds. These are chaotic scrambles. You're hitting whatever you can. Usman's not necessarily a striker. He's not got the best control of his weapons by comparison. And that's the fight over. So where are we? Hang on. Let's go back to where we were. I just want to go through each one of these shots. So, and again, you can see the referee's going to move around to this side where you can get a better view, because as Usman's sprawling, he's turning his back towards the referee, which means that he can't see Colby's face, he can't see his body, his posture very well. So he's going to move around to the side where he can see, which is the correct thing to do as a referee. Moves around to the side, tricep, glances off the arm, catches him in the side of the head. That's the back of the head shot, I would say. Then he goes back to the tricep because he doesn't want to hit him in the back of the head. Then he goes to the side of the face and the side of the face, sprawls out to give himself a bit more space. Under the side, again, he's going under the arm, so to hit him in the face. Under the arm again. Now, I could make an argument for that being back of the head based on the direction that Colby's facing. But that one's not. That's a legal shot because Colby's thumb is over his ear at this point. And I'm sure that some of you will still feel like this is a back of the head shot, but that's probably because you don't understand the back of the head target area, which I'll explain in a second. So for me, I've got one back of the head shot and one kind of borderline, both relatively inconsequential. The damage was done. Colby wasn't intelligently defending himself. That's why this was a TKO. The point of difference, a knockout is unable to defend themselves. If a fighter is knocked out, they are unable to defend themselves. If a fighter is TKO'd, they are not intelligently defend themselves. A TKO means that they're not unconscious, but they're not conscious or aware enough to do the right things to keep themselves safe. Covington's been dropped twice with concussive shots. He's now in a shot, stuck on his knees, getting sprawled and getting hammer fists. You don't know how hurt he is. As far as we know, he's got a broken jaw. He's been dropped twice. He's taken a real beating off Usman. We also need to notice that we've got 50 seconds on the clock. Hammer fist, and there's the referee's in. So there's the first knockdown. Oh, sorry, no, that's the second one. There we go, other angle. Tricep. You can see how it catches his arm. You can see the ripple go through the arm there, look. Here we go. So we go tricep to head, potentially back of the head, arm, side of the head, side of the head, side of the head, under the side of the head, borderline, potentially back of the head. Again, not a position where I'm going to stop him and give him a warning, though, in this chaotic situation, because these things happen. Like you know, what you're trying to do in a fight when you're a referee. I am qualified as a referee, actually. I don't do it very often. I haven't done it for a while, but I got qualified because I want to understand what I'm supposed to be seeing as a referee, because I can see it from Usman's and Covington's perspective, because I've been in both those positions. I need to understand what the referee's doing as well. The referee's looking at this guy who's already hurt, who's on the floor, and he's taking these shots, but he's not doing anything to improve his position. If anything, he actually regresses, because he goes from reaching across the back of the legs and taking shots to the face, underneath his arm, to then guarding his head, and he takes a couple more, and that's where the referee steps in. And if you pull this up, you can pull this finish up, get some noise-cancelling headphones on, and crank that volume up for a second. What you will hear the referee shout is, "Get out of there, Colby! Get out of there!" That's why you can see he's animated in his face. "Get out of there, Colby! Get out of there!" And then he steps in and saves him. It's the end of the fight. So when it comes to the back of the head striking, and this is where I want to finish this, the reason why we avoid the back of the head is because of this area here. It's called the occipital junction. Now, The occipital junction is important because it controls a lot of things like edge and depth perception, your ability to focus and create images in your brain from what your eyes are taking in. There's a lot of important stuff here that comes up through the spinal column and joins into the skull. And of all the places that you can get hit, that is one place that you are very vulnerable and can be easily damaged. Now, I have a no contest on my record from getting elbowed to the back of my head. My team after the fact had protested the result because they were in my corner seeing it, and I was getting elbowed in the back of the head. Anyway, the point is, for 2 months after that fight, the whole side of my face was numb because of the damage that I'd had to the nerves in the back of my neck. I kept biting the inside of my mouth. I didn't have any control. All that felt numb. It was a very, very odd feeling. I felt like I could have stuck a pin through it and it wouldn't have hurt me. The reason why is because I was hit in the occipital junction, where all that important stuff is, or where all that important information flows. So if we look on the next thing, what I want to show you here is the legal striking area. Let me see the best place to do this. So you see the crown at the top of the head there. That's the occipital junction. That's the occipital knob. You'll feel one of those. I've got one just there. Everyone's got one of those. So the legal striking area is mohawk width, which is a couple of 3 inches. 2 inches is what it's supposed to be. So we're looking at that area. Oh, Jesus, let me get some better lines on here. Oh, new colour. Come on, brain. There we go. Okay. Line, line, line. So that is what we're looking at as the striking area. That's what you're not allowed to strike. That is the back of the head. So we often get confused when it comes to the back of the head shots because we think that it's this whole thing here, and it's not. The back of the head is guarding that occipital junction. The reason why is because there's so much valuable information and there's so much valuable stuff flowing back and through there. It's like a super highway for your body's central nervous system, as you can see on this picture on the left, with all of this stuff that's going on. This is what we're protecting on fighters when it comes to the back of the head. And oftentimes things happen in fights where it's right on the border, but no one mentions it. It could be a very big concussive shot and everyone's like, oh, it was a beautiful head kick, and we all carry on. If you know this area, if you know this striking area, what you're dealing with there, you can see how a lot of these shots that land on the back of the head are actually not illegal shots. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about this and go back and watch the Covington fight and tell me how many of those shots you think. In fact, a couple of debating points for the comments below. One, tell me how you were scoring this fight going in. As I said, I had first 2 rounds to Covington 10-9, the second 2 rounds to Usman 10-9. I had the 5th round a 10-8, which, if it had gone the additional 50 seconds, would have put Usman 48-46 on the scorecards. So even if Covington had made it through these last 50 seconds, I feel like he would have still lost on the scorecards. The other thing that we have to bear in mind as well is that it was a high pressure fight. It was a chaotic situation, and Covington is very good at immediately putting a spin on things to get himself back into the conversation. Because what happened here is he won 2 rounds against Usman, and then he got beaten up pretty good. To make an argument for him having a rematch, a little bit of controversy goes a long way. So talking about potentially having a broken jaw and then, no, I don't have a broken jaw, keeps the conversation going. Strikes to the back of the head, the officials are against me, etc., etc. It's the trolls. Everyone's trying to take away what I've got. They're resentful for my success. I have nothing against it. He's playing the game. But you have to recognize that it's a game. You have to recognize that if you told something a certain amount of times, you will start to believe it, because that is the flawed reset that we've got in our brain. That's the back of the top. That's the striking area for the back of the head. The reason why I'm showing you that is because I want to move on to a couple of really cool little clips that are some of my favorite finishes. And these illustrate how close to the back of the head you can get without breaking the rules. So you remember this one, the great Mirko Cro Cop in his first fight against Gonzaga. Obviously, Cro Cop's known for his for his lethal head kick. And Gonzaga's just been stood up, actually. He was in ground and pound positions on the floor, guard, ground and pound. And the referee had stood him up and put him back in his position. 10 seconds left. You're like, why would you even bother? It's a good thing he did, because you seen Gonzaga throw his right hand here and then circle and then wham. and what a kick this is. Because this is what Cro Cop's known for. And the worst thing about it is the way that his legs folds underneath him. Oh. Watch it from the other angle. So here we go. So look at the striking target. That is hitting there. That is not the back of the head. That is a legal striking target. Because there's solid skull there. We're not moving towards the occipital joint where it gets dangerous. The toes might wrap around a little bit, but that is a perfectly legal striking area. And watch Cro Cop's ankle as he lands. I don't know how that ankle wasn't broken. It's amazing. Look at that. He's got his big toe up his own ass. It's crazy. I literally don't know how he didn't break his ankle there. There we go. Here's one more. And you can see the way that Cro Cop's head turns away, but you can also see that it's landing right on this top area here, which is a legal striking area. I think I might have one more replay of that one. I tell you what, Herb Dean used to be quick. Holy shit, look at that. Boom! Not easy to tackle Gonzaga. There's one more. I mean, it's so borderline. But you're just not going to stop the fight and call it a disqualification for an illegal shot, because first of all, it's not an illegal shot, and second of all, it's a damn good head kick from Gonzaga. And you're going to touch the back of the head sometimes with shots. Of course you are. Like, if you're Brock Lesnar and you've got your fists of that size, you know what I mean? He was like a 4 or 5XL glove, Brock Lesnar was. If he hits you in the head, he's going to hit your whole head. Like, here's another example. Uriah Faber in his second fight against Barao gets caught with a good shot, level changes and Barao circles, and this is another thing I don't like as well. But look where these shots are landing. Wait a minute, where are we? No, you can't see it from this side. Not very well anyway. Here we go. This is better. Let me slow-mo it down properly. Like, you can see where the back of these shots are landing. You can see that Uriah Faber is grabbing the back of his head like Colby Covington was. That is not an argument for the shots going to the back of the head. He is just defending. When you're on a plane, if the plane's going down, what do they tell you? Get in the brace position. That's your brace position. Like, that's all he's doing. He's just bracing. He's also taking shots on the back side of the neck. And this is what I hate. I really, really don't like people protesting to the referee. Look, he's out, he's done. It's a typical Renan Barao thing to do, and it's just ugly. And poor old Faber, he had his other hand thumb up here, which you know, of course we see after the fact, but it was difficult for the referee to see it. Taking these shots, like, you can't see the thumb up there. You can just about see it. That's not enough. That's not intelligently defending yourself. Again, TKO finish, not intelligently defending yourself. A few shots to the back of the head, and then straight away, like, he doesn't even want to let go of his leg. He's like, you can't be stopping it there. Surely I'm all right. Very frustrating for Faber, but, you know, he takes it like a champ, and he's like, you know, fair enough. It is what it is. We'll run it back. And then a more recent one, which has been complained about very recently, in fact, by JDS, who I love JDS, but it just shows you that, I mean, this is a 2-time heavyweight champion. Whether he's putting a spin on this to try and create a drama, a storyline, or whether he actually feels like he was hitting the back of the head here, I don't know. The reality is, though, he wasn't. This was a perfectly legal elbow by Cyril Gane. So what you can see is JDS starting to turn away, and you can see Cyril Gane coming in with this elbow. Now, from this angle, that does look pretty bad, I'll be honest. But if we look at it from the other side, and if we look at the position that the forearm lands, and you've got to think where the meat of the forearm is landing. Lovely little step through by Cyril. Where are we? Here we go. As JDS is turning away. Turns back to look at him. And Cyril's going to throw this elbow just as he's turning away. So what's the first thing that lands there? Forearm to the side of the neck. You can see the change in JDS's face as the forearm has landed. Not near the back of the head when that lands. The reason why it might feel like the back of the head is because as it lands, and as JDS is turning his head away, it catches him. But it's still Legal striking area. One more. And this is why when fighters are in these positions and they're ground and pounding, the referees will always tell them, before the fight, they'll tell them, make sure you're trying to catch the ears. Because as long as you're catching the ears, you're going to be away from the back of the head, right? That's all fine. I can hit them there. It's just from the crown down. Mohawk, 2 inches. That was a lovely elbow from Cyril Gann. Nothing wrong with it at all. Matt Brown, Diego Sanchez is another one. It's worth going back and watching some fights. It's worth going back and watching the Covington Usman finish and bearing in mind what the legal striking area is. Especially if you didn't feel like you had a good understanding of before, and now I've explained it to you a little bit better. Back of the head, ears, neck. So crown of the head, 2 inches across, down. Gives you a decent amount of area to strike around the top and sides of the head without you breaking the rules. And if you're a young fighter, it's worth you knowing these things. And I think I mentioned it before. I mean, I scored this 5th round for Usman. I scored the 5th round 10-8 for Usman because of the 2 knockdowns, if it had gone the distance. So 50 seconds later, I've got 1st and 2nd round 10-9 for Covington, 3rd and 4th 10-9 for Usman, and 5th round 10-8 for Usman. If we'd have gone to the scorecards, I'd have had it 48-46 for Usman. So even the fight being stopped a few seconds earlier wouldn't really change anything. And if you want to see a fight where it would have changed, I mean, there are lots of different comebacks and, like lots of different comebacks in fights. One of my favorite fights ever is Meldrick Taylor against Julio Cesar Chavez. Meldrick Taylor was spanking Chavez, which I was not expecting. Chavez is my favorite boxer of all time. He was absolutely spanking him. And it came to the end of the 12th round, and Julio Cesar Chavez put his foot on the gas and was able to stop Meldrick Taylor within seconds of the fight being finished. And had he made it to the final bell, he would have won on the scorecards, and he would have handed Julio Cesar Chavez his first loss of his career, which would have been a huge deal because he was like 64-0 at the time or something crazy. They interview the referee after, and you can tell he used to be a boxer because just the way he talks, you can tell he used to be a boxer. He's a little bit slurry and a little bit, but he is absolutely to the point. When a fighter needs protecting, I will protect that fighter. I don't care whether there's, I don't remember his exact phrase, but go and watch the fight. The point he's making is he doesn't care whether there's 10 minutes or 10 seconds left on the clock. If the fighter needs protecting because they're not intelligently defending themselves, then he'll do it. And that's what that referee did. It was the right thing to do. I have no problem with this stoppage. I don't think it would have changed much about the fight going into the scorecards. I think Usman would have still won on the scorecards. Covington would have still put a spin on it. We'd have still got the rematch. I don't think anything changed. Any drama that comes out of this only fed into the rematch, which we all benefited from because, of course, we like that drama. So I'm finishing it there. I think I've said enough. A few things to answer in the comments below. Some things I want to know. First of all, how were you scoring this fight before the finish? Second, how many, if any, of those strikes do you feel landed to the back of Covington's head? Number 3, what do you think about the other 3 fights? The Gonzaga kick, the Barao finish, and the one with Gann and the elbow against JDS. Lots of good talking points. Really interesting case study. I hope I've told you something that you didn't know already. All right. Thank you for watching the archive, and I'll see you next time.